very strange that I have a large nose, and I'll tell you why.
I guess you're privileged to have a big nose then, because you don't live in harsh conditions.
The habanero one? Holy fuck, dude. Woo! You know, maybe I've been treating this bike as some sort of parkour bike when really it's just a...
I once came face to face with a wild rhinoceros. That was pretty crazy.
I got stung by a bee once. Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. We're talking about what is stress and current little things that are going on.
Yeah.
We're not quite sure where it's going to go.
Little tasks that are stressing us out.
I got an email. No, not an email. I got a letter in the mail saying, we're going to take you to court if you don't pay your fine.
Right.
I'm like, what is this even from? I don't
Yeah.
recognize the name of the company. It takes a little digging before I find out that the name of the company is actually Fitness Deco, which is like a gym that I
Right.
signed up to in 2017 when I first moved here, so that I had a place to shower.
Yeah.
Because I was living in a
Summer house.
summer house
Garden
without
shed.
running water.
Yeah.
And I went there maybe like 4 or 5 times in the month of December. And then I canceled it. I canceled my membership. I paid for one thing, one off. I didn't do a recurring payment. I canceled it.
Yeah.
And apparently, when you cancel, well, it's one of those things where you can't actually cancel 1 month. It's like you're bound to a minimum of 3 months.
Okay.
Or 4 months or something. So they said, fine, you can cancel now. So you're letting us know, but your membership will continue to run
Right.
for 2 more months.
Right.
And I vaguely remember that.
Right.
I remember being annoyed about it, but like, again, like, what are you going to do?
Right.
I'm not about to hire a lawyer
Yeah.
and figure this thing out and make it fair. But I canceled it, and I assume, again, I can't remember, that I didn't pay for those 2 extra months where I wasn't actually going there.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening is that the government had miswritten something in my forms regarding where I'm currently located.
Yeah.
And I am registered as living in Denmark, but something about the way it's written made whoever was looking at my thing think I was still living in the Netherlands. And
Okay.
I realized this when we were dealing with something with the business, and I had to call them and talk to them about why I couldn't do something as the administrator. And they said, oh, it's because you're registered living in Holland. And I was like, no, I'm not. And she's like, oh, right. No, you're not. It just looks like it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's weird. Can you make sure that doesn't look that way?
Yeah.
And so they must have been trying to send me letters month after month after month saying, okay, it's increased. The price is increased. You have to pay more, like late fees, more
Yeah,
late fees.
yeah.
So like 13 months later, when I finally get a letter in the mail because now my address has been like properly updated or
Yeah.
whatever, it's like 2,000 kroner
Yeah.
and not like 200.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not my fault because I told them where I was living
Right.
as soon as I moved here.
Right.
But because of something that was written slightly weird,
Yeah.
not even incorrectly,
Yeah.
just so that someone else misread it,
Right.
couldn't send me this letter, which in the first place is a bit of an annoying thing to have to pay
Yeah.
when you're not going to the gym.
Yeah.
I'm just like, what are you going to do?
Dude, I just hate shit like that in general.
Yeah.
I had it in America with tolls with my car, and it's like the fact that we can't figure out. They're like, oh, I sent you a letter. It's fucking 2019.
Yeah.
Send me a email. I would be fine to have, the Danish people, which I'm a part of now, have a government given email
Yeah.
and inbox that sort of anybody can use if they need to contact you regarding anything important, basically, right? Which I'm like, okay, that actually makes sense to me. That's a system where it kind
Yeah.
of follows you. You don't have to be living, because I still
You get
think,
a text
like,
every time you get an email there,
Yeah.
which is great.
and I'm like, in America, I mean, just the idea that you could disappear somewhere without any consequences is like, no. You always are going to have, I still got like a month of taxes that I need to, this year taxes aren't due until April, but it's like, still, I got to like figure out my taxes in America for that 1 month, which isn't a big deal. Then I had all those tolls. I like sold my car, and it's like all these little things that nobody teaches you how to do that shit. Like I sold my car, and people were like, well, did you take your license plate off? I was like, no. Well, did you get a signature or a receipt from the guy? And I was like, no, I just gave him my car and he gave me cash.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're like, oh, you're so stupid. And it's like, I didn't know that you were supposed to like have a pink slip sign and everything, you know?
Yeah.
I just trusted the guy. He owned a mechanic. He had a bunch of cars around.
Yeah.
And it's like shit like that. And then it's like, what? I don't fucking know. Is the California DMV gonna like come after me and be like, you haven't registered your car, blah, blah, blah.
And it's the I don't know.
I don't fucking
It's like, I don't know what's going to happen. And that makes it a little more stressful.
And you know what it is? It's exactly the thing where it's like, I think, well, we're going to have to explore this a little bit, but I'm just going to say this.
Do it.
The whole idea of like, you can tell a person not to do something, but you can't really tell a person to do something extra, right? So for example, you can say, you're not allowed to litter. You're not allowed to throw things on the street.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Littering is bad. You're going to get fined for it. That's a law.
Right.
But you can't tell people every time you go outside and see a piece of litter, or every time you go outside, you need to pick up 10 pieces of litter as a law.
Right.
Because you're setting up something like extra for that person to have to you understand where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
And then certain things just feel like, no,
You can't
that's
tell me
on
to do
you.
that. Yeah.
You
Well,
can't.
That's
a law you guys made
yeah.
up before I was even born, and I have no idea about, and nobody taught me how to go through that process. So it feels a little bit odd to punish rather than to be like, look, we understand this is complicated. We're going to help you figure this out because it's not intuitive.
Well, this is the other thing that I have to pay a fine for, which is before I realized that this email service that you're talking about, where
Yeah.
you get emails from official government stuff.
Yeah.
Before I realized you could have your text, have it send you a text as well.
Right.
To like notify you there's something you should go check, because
Right.
it's not in your email inbox.
Right.
It's like a separate website you go to.
Right.
I received a couple of letters asking me to go to this military day that we talked about in the other podcast that I went to.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize this was the third letter.
Yeah.
And that I had been asked to come 2 times earlier.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I thought it was only 1 time. And I paid for that fine. And then I called the police saying, well, hang on, why are you sending me a second one? And it was because, rightly enough, there was a second email that was in there
Right.
amongst all
Right.
these other dates, reminders, and then sending me an actual ticket for not
Yeah.
showing up. I
Yeah.
kind of just assumed it was part of the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's my fault for not seeing it, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, I didn't know you had to go to these things in the first place.
It's very...
It's not like a fault thing, but
It is
I
weird.
went and I did it, I did it like how I was
Yeah.
supposed to. And then after I'd done it, I got the letter with a new ticket.
Yeah.
Like I called them. There's just nothing you can do.
Yeah. It's certain expectations of like, I don't live my life. I had the same problem in college where professors would send out something on a Saturday or Sunday, and I would show up to class and they'd be like, and everybody would have gotten the memo.
Right.
And I hadn't checked my emails.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, it's your responsibility to get, and I was like, no, I'm not. I'm in your class for 50 minutes. That's when you can tell, that's when I'm attentive to what's going on. Anytime after that, to send a change, it's a little bit on you now to make sure that, I don't know if you need to call me or if but this expectation that I'm,
I get it.
And like some European countries, I think have made laws now that as a job, you're not allowed to email people after like 7 p.m. or something, right?
Really?
Because it does become this thing of like,
Well, I'm not following that if it's...
no. But I just in general, the idea that like, when someone goes home from work, they should be allowed to shut off and not have consequences because they forgot to check their emails during that time or something.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think also people then feel like, and I feel like too, like in college, I felt a lot like that. Like I could never, like it was just constant run. Even if you had a day off, you're still kind of on edge about like somebody
something I have
emailing
to
you
see?
or
Yeah.
something changing or, blah, blah, blah. And I just fucking hate it. I really do.
But we do live in this society.
Right.
We do have to kind of follow those rules
Right.
and those and it makes sense. Like I could have known about it. It was, I guess, my responsibility to
It sort
figure
of makes
it
sense,
out.
but what's the alternative? I mean, like the whole thing, maybe there's some massive thing that I'm not understanding, but the whole thing with taxes is like, why can't you just, if you're going to take money from my paycheck or from my earnings, which I totally support, obviously, it's like, just fucking do it. Why do I need to go in
and say what is
right?
tax?
I understand if I have 10 businesses and it gets a little complicated and I have an accountant, great. But if I'm one employee in California who's got a very simple pay stub, it's like, what? Why can we not figure out how to just streamline it and simplify it? And then I sometimes wonder too with like the tolls and all that weird shit where it's like you drive your car on a highway and you get a picture taken and it gets sent to the wrong address, and the same shit where it's like late fees accumulate until they finally find you. And I'm like, are you guys just making your money on a bunch of late fees? Because it almost feels like it's part of the system a little bit. That
Maybe they could have tried a bit harder to find out where you actually
know my
lived.
number. Yeah, I have a phone number. You can call me.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
You know,
Conspiracy.
not a conspiracy, but I think there definitely is a feeling of, you know, maybe you want people to be a little bit late. Maybe that is how you make a decent amount of your money. You know, because I think that the toll is like $2.50, and then the late fee is like $500. I'm like,
It's
really?
true. Yeah, it's a lot, and it's a little overwhelming. And it's like, I called the guy, and I was like, at first I was like, I'm gonna go in hot. Well, actually, I wasn't thinking that consciously, but I felt that. I felt really
Right.
kind of like cheated. Like,
Right.
I did what I was supposed to do, so I
Right.
thought, and still they're sending me this. But then I changed kind of attitude and was just very like, you know, this is really not easy for me to have to deal with. Like, that's a lot of money
Yeah.
for something that is multiple people's kind of fault, you know, an email being written incorrectly on their end,
Right.
whether that's me spelling it incorrectly or
Right.
my handwriting being bad
Right.
or them physically typing something,
Right.
you know, and then it's just, and he was like, I can kind of see where you're coming from, but like, what's he going to do? Like, I'm going to do you a favor?
Yeah, but then
no,
it's
that's
always
not
like,
how it works.
well, why does the burden fall on you then?
Because it has to,
It has to fall on somebody.
It has to fall on
Right.
someone.
But then it's the thing too. It's
And
like,
I could have avoided it.
it's always going to fall on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. I could. It's not like I had no chance.
Right.
I could have. I could have remembered initially
Right.
that was something that maybe had to be dealt
Right.
with. Well, I mean, I guess that's pretty obvious.
Right.
But as soon as you forget, and then like 13 months later, and it's to that extent,
Right.
it's like, well, the growth of the bill or
Right.
of the ticket is kind of like, that's the part I'm like, ugh.
It's very
Couldn't really
frustrating.
have done anything about that.
Especially with the whole accountability thing, where I think people are so quick to hold you accountable for something that is genuinely a mistake, a simple
Right.
sort of forgetting something or, you know, personal
Yeah.
mistake or whatever. But then it's like when some sort of corporation fucks up or something massive happens, the accountability just goes out the fucking window and everyone's like, I don't fucking know who's oops.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
Same
Did we
time,
do that?
like, if it was 100% their fault and I had absolutely no way of dealing with it myself, I would feel even more angry and upset and stressed out about it.
Right.
The fact that, I could have done something about it makes me a little bit more like, all right, okay, at least I can, you know, stop it from happening in the future.
I mean, that one does just sound like...
Of course, I'm not denying it.
Yeah,
You know,
but
like,
it is frustrating.
It is frustrating. But let's go back to what I was saying with, I mean, I want to hear if you agree that we've been editing and yeah, it's been super, you know, intense, but in the same way, it's also been like, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's where our focus is.
Yeah.
We know what this week looks like. We know what next week looks like. We even know what like next month looks like.
Yeah.
It doesn't really look like that anymore. It's a little bit more like now we have to figure out stuff day to day, week to week, and that makes everything a little more. And sometimes like Monday morning, it can feel a little like, oh God, I wish we were just doing something easy.
Easy meaning...
I don't know, just where I knew.
Oh, I see.
This is what exactly what's happening. It's like, okay, we've put a lot on the line by focusing on this project, on editing Boris and Johan, and we kind of thought it out, and this is what we're doing.
It's certainly justified.
And exactly, I'm not disputing that whatsoever. But it's like now we're in the part where it's money starting to get a little tight. We don't have jobs that are exactly lined up like we used to have them.
Yeah.
We have a paycheck coming in, but it's not super obvious when that's happening
Yeah.
because the people we're working with are a little behind.
Yeah.
Which is fair. Like,
Yeah.
they're allowed to be.
Yeah.
Like we haven't finished the video.
Yeah.
And we don't have immediate things that are happening afterwards.
Yeah.
Now we're coming to the point where we knew we would come.
Yeah.
And now we have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it adds this extra layer of, it's so easy to sit and be like, that's our passion. You know, we have to focus and work on what we want to do, follow and do what we love, and it'll all work out.
Yeah.
Which is, I support that 100%.
Yeah.
It's like, now we're in the hard part, and now it's tempting for your brain to kind of am I doing the right thing? And I always end up with, of course. It's not
Right.
that. I'm not trying to say that at all. Just throwing out there this whole
Yeah. I think
don't feel it super often, and when it does, it's like, I feel like then suddenly your brain goes to everything else that's a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit stressful.
yeah.
Like I've just started taking driving lessons.
Yeah.
I'm not even driving in a car yet. It's just theory lessons.
Yeah.
But going to the lessons is this,
One more thing.
it's something else. I don't quite know what to do. Like the first time I went, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was gonna get in a car.
Yeah.
I didn't know if I had the right paperwork with me. Just small things.
Yeah.
It just adds to this
Yeah.
little pile of unknown stuff. And I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about last week, which was the thing about going to the pool and swimming.
Right.
How that's really hard for me in the mornings.
Oh,
Like
did
I
you
could
go?
do, I went. But it's still something that's unknown to me a little bit. I'm not a swimmer.
Right.
It's something I'm not comfortable in
Yeah.
the water in the same way that I am running. Like
Yeah.
I'd happily switch out my 1 hour swim for like a 2 hour run.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know what to do. I know my route.
Yeah.
I'm the only one out there. I know
Yeah.
exactly how to get ready
Yeah.
and what to do afterwards
Yeah.
and how I feel and
Yeah.
what my brain does when I'm running. Like you're in the water and there's a bunch of things you don't know, the etiquette, like what lane do I get in? Am I supposed to try and get in the fast lane, or like when people lap me or whatever, like go in front of me, is that because are they angry at me?
Right.
Or is that just how you do it?
Right.
And then when I'm about to overtake someone, how do I do it? And it's like all these things that are irrelevant, small little things.
But that's interesting.
It opens like a floodgate of like all these other things.
Yeah. No, I thought
You start
about
thinking
that a
that
lot
way.
over the last couple years, because I felt like at some point I had put myself in a position where everything I was doing was new. I was like living in a new place,
Yeah.
meeting new people, starting new hobbies, starting new sort of like goals. And so your confidence, and I'm not saying this happened to you, but this happened to me, kind of just plummeted because I had nothing that I was like good at.
Right.
So just in any situation,
Yeah.
I was like, even socially, somebody had to kind of like nudge me and be like, hey, this is Taylor, and then figuring out where I'm living and how driving in, let's say, LA. And then I started rock climbing and you start at the very bottom again and you're like, you suck, and it's a new thing. And you've never done it before.
Yeah.
And then you're writing a script and showing it, and you've never done that, but and you make a movie and I've never done that before. And it's just like, it just eats and eats and eats at your confidence. And I think luckily you come through it at the
Right,
end, right?
that's the point.
And then you're kind of ahead a little bit again. But I think it's a good thing to do, but it's definitely a hard thing to go through in the moment.
100%. That's what I'm getting
really
to.
does.
It's like that's kind of why I think we do it, and we being in
Right.
general, why
Right.
we do new things and why
Right.
we put ourselves in stressful situations. Like the way to deal with stress is to expose yourself to it
Right.
and learn how to handle it and
Right.
learn how to see what it's doing
And deal with
how
that
it's working and
ego
what's
sort
happening.
of destroying,
Yeah.
It's like when we went to climb that mountain.
Yeah.
You feel like a child, basically, whose dad is like, okay, this is how you do this, and this is how you do that, and you really have to like, not that I would get pissed off, but you have to let go of that sort of like, I want to know what's going on. I want to be in charge. I want to be the person, and just sort of push all that aside, which
It's exactly that.
Yeah.
So with like the taxes that we're having to do now,
yeah,
it's like, because it's all in Danish, so I'm kind of the one looking at it
Right.
initially.
right.
And it's just, I have no idea what any of it means.
Yeah.
and you're immediately like, well, let's call and ask.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, let me just try and figure it out a little bit because I don't want to be on the phone and not even know what to ask, you know?
Yeah.
We call and be like, help, taxes. Like,
Right.
I want to be able to at least say like, all right, so I've kind of understood this part of it, but this word is throwing me off, and I want to like, can you explain what this part means?
Right.
But you're totally right. It's totally this feeling of, I'm not comfortable not being someone who knows what's going on.
Right.
And it's good to not know that all the time.
Totally.
Because then you learn, and then you get better, and then
Yeah.
you grow, and then you
Yeah.
get stronger, and then
Yeah.
the next time you're quicker at it, and you
Right.
can start learning more things. And it's obviously part of the experience. But it's hard.
Yeah, you definitely have to go through. And the whole, like, even starting a business, I think the hard thing isn't starting the business. It's going through the embarrassing sort of like, oh, we're not making any money. You might have to ask some people to help, like, support you a little bit, or you might have to kind of just go through this shit that I'm sure everyone has to go through when they're starting a business. And, like, yeah, it's hard to make probably a profit in the first year and blah, blah, blah. And as much as you want to tell people, like, we're fucking killing it, you know, well, the millions of dollars coming in, it's like, no, that takes years to build, obviously. And before that, you do just kind of look like an ass a little bit, you know? Like, there's nothing. Obviously, I know why I'm doing it internally for myself, but, like, externally to show people, like, what are we getting out of it? Kind of takes a while to reveal itself, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's also a serious high that you ride right at first.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you kind of, I don't know if revel is the right word, but like you kind of thrive off of the unknown.
Yeah.
And you like the risk and the uncertainty, and it's kind of exciting and exhilarating. And then it works out and you feel like, oh, well, my mindset must have been right.
And people validate it at the beginning too. They're like, oh, it's so great that you guys are doing that, blah, blah, blah. 6 months later, it's not like, it's still great that you guys are still doing that. Yeah, it kind of does fade into like, well, that's what's just happening now. Yeah. Which again, it's not a bad thing. It just is what it is, I think. I think that's what you have to go through. And for me, particularly, I think a big change was in LA and New York, I made good money editing. So on the surface, everyone was like, oh, Taylor's doing great in life.
Right, because you're making
because
a lot
he's
of money.
making so much money.
Yeah.
He doesn't have, and it was, you know, I didn't have any worries about paying bills or apartment or whatever. Everything's fine. But internally, I was fucking not happy, not, you know, but on the surface to everyone else, it looked fine. And now this whole flip thing, I think is so interesting where it's like, yeah, now I don't have the money and money is tight. And we are living
you can't
basically
like
month
say
to month.
exactly what's happening.
Right. And there's nothing I can like
Point to.
say, oh, I'm doing fine. You know, I got this. But I am doing fine and I feel way better than I ever have. But the sort of, I don't even know what you'd call them, but the sort of factors that I think certain people would look at when they're trying to judge, is he doing all right? Change. Priorities change.
So do you still feel like you're saying that like last year, the last couple of years, you felt like you got into a rhythm of trying new things constantly and like your confidence?
It wasn't
like,
on
that.
purpose either. It
And
was
then
just
it
like,
went up again.
it just happened.
Right.
You know, instead of playing volleyball, I got interested in rock climbing.
You started doing a bunch of new things. Do you feel like you're still doing that now?
Yeah, but I think I'm more confident now because I've gone through the utter humiliation and like shit of doing some of that, especially I would say like making Boris and Johan and then coming out of it. And now I feel like I have a purpose. I'm proud of that. I have something, you know, I'm ready to do, already thinking about your film and the next thing. And it doesn't feel so, I feel like that's something I know I want to do for the rest of my life. So I'm happy. I'm sure you go through dips and constantly are putting yourself in that position again. But that first time around, you really do feel like, oh, everybody's doubting me. And
They probably are.
well, yeah, right. And I've left my job and I'm doing all this new stuff and I'm living in a new city. Although I've lived in New York before, but again, it's like living in a new place. try to build new routines. Is this even the right fucking choice? Is this, and then I think also the whole idea of like, you want other people to like you and respect you, but if you don't have anything, like I really felt like at some point I had like in any situation, I wasn't the person who was like, oh, he knows what he's doing.
Right.
Oh, we're playing vol. Oh, he's pretty good. That's like anything that could kind of build up your character. I had nothing, so it was just like at total zero. Like any social situation, any contact with any person, I felt like at the end of it was just like a little bit humiliating. I was just like, I just don't have anything to.
Now there's the added, I don't know, pressure of you feel proud of having made Boris and Johan.
Yeah.
And you said that this is the first thing that I actually really feel proud of as something.
Yeah.
But now people have to also hopefully think that, or you have to deal with either that not being the case or it meeting your expectations.
Right.
How's that working in your head?
I think it's that I'm happy with myself. Obviously I want people to like it, but I don't think it wouldn't make me less proud of the film. Right. So I feel comfortable with whatever people think about it. That's that. Whereas when I sent the script, that like was terrible because you would send it and you would get feedback from people and maybe somebody didn't really understand it and somebody you're just not, obviously you're not getting back the feedback of like, this is the best thing I've ever read in my life and this is gonna, you're kind of getting all these questions and then you're starting to doubt yourself and you're starting, because you haven't actually fucking done the thing.
Right.
So it feels like, and you still don't 100% know that you are going to do it. You're like trying to convince yourself like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm really going to do it. But in the back of your head, you always have this out of like, well, if everything completely goes to shit, then obviously we're not going to do it. Or, if maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe I should wait another year and write a different story. Or, You don't feel like there's a similar kind of thing though, where it's like we've edited something and we really think it's good and we can tell you why we think it's good. Yeah. But that there's still this like unknown of whether or not that's going to translate. And if someone who's never seen it, never heard anything about it, doesn't know anything about what we've done, will get what we think they will get out of it. It's totally different. I really do. Because it's like... How's it different? Because when we put out the film, that will be its own thing then. Mm-hmm. It's not, imagine if... I wouldn't even want to say, like, imagine if we had a bigger budget. Look at what... Honestly, I would be so proud of it that it's just like, here it is. It is what it is. It's out in the world. It's not even our project anymore. It's now for other people to, which to me is just very different from all the other
that's totally
stages,
different.
Right?
That's definitely totally different. But I mean, like, we have an intention behind a certain element within the film or a scene that we want to do this. And the fear is that somebody wouldn't understand that. Or... Right. And it isn't. It's not just that they specifically don't get it. It's that the majority of it's not what we think it is. Right. That's what I'm talking about. Right. Like the fear of that happening. That would suck. But is that something you think about, or am I like bringing up something unnecessarily now? No, I really don't think about it now. Oh, that's good. No. I do. Really? Not in like a bad way. Yeah. But I'm just like, I think I've said that, and like I can't wait to actually get some confirmation about certain things. Yeah, I think that would be good, but I also trust that we have maybe if it was just me doing it, it would feel a little bit different, but the fact that there's two people agreeing, I feel like, we have to trust a little bit that we know what we're doing to a certain extent. But that would be interesting. For sure, we've been wrong in the past. I mean, right. I mean, if history shows anything, that's 100% going to happen. Yeah. With something. Yeah. But I would still say it's good to be ready for it. Even like the red light video, for example, we did a campaign video for a restaurant, and it didn't do as well. Out of the 5 videos that we made for them, we thought it was going to do the best. It ended up
not doing great in the overall scheme of things, right? Even though that one didn't go viral or get picked up by anything or really get seen by a lot of people, I still think it's good.
Yeah.
And I would still sit down with someone and say, I think it's good for these reasons.
Right.
And they might say, okay, well, people didn't get that. And I said, that's fine. I still think it's good. That's my taste. That's what I have to offer. People don't have to like it, but if I start questioning what I think is good, then I have nothing.
But
then I'm just going off of like, what do I think people will like? And then I think people don't like that.
That's different though. Yeah. Taste is totally different. And I would say the same with the red light video.
Right.
You know, I feel confident that if I sat down with someone, I would be able to explain and justify why it would be received the way it's being received.
Right.
Like
Or
someone
even if
is going to go through it and understand this because of this,
Yeah.
understand this because of that, and come out of it with this kind of general feeling.
Right.
Whether they like that or not, that's not what I'm interested in. It's more like, you know, story points. Like we think this is going to have, people are going to understand this or connect these two things, or
but we're
realize that that's relevant because of this.
Yeah.
And have that intention, and it just blow over people's heads. And then that's something that we thought was going to have that effect, but doesn't.
But
Taste,
that would
different.
be our fault.
Right. And then we have time to fix it still.
Exactly.
So,
Right. But finished product, if that happens, then I would be like, oh, we fucked up.
Yeah.
Or I stand by what we did.
Right.
And, you know.
Let's move on.
Moving on.
To another question of the unknown.
Uh-huh.
A theme of this episode.
Uh-huh.
An office.
Uh-huh.
It's something we haven't talked about for a really
Long time.
But it's something that I think is coming up as having some relevance.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about it. It's just something I know that is going to play a role.
Yeah.
I mean, most obviously because I'm having a baby.
Yeah.
And it's living here.
A little baby. That's what they tend to do.
And it's been brought up by a few people,
Uh-huh.
not by myself.
My mom brought it up yesterday.
And my mom brought it up.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Like, how does one get an office? How does that even work? What is this thing?
We
right?
have 3 options.
Okay,
That's
a good start.
We have a co-working space that we could sign up for.
So like kind of like a rent. We rent a space in
Yeah.
a co-working.
But I think it would be like startups and people our age, and they would rent I'm sure they
It's
rent
cheaper.
a certain floor, and you say, okay, we'll take 2 of these desks and blah, 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 and it's a lot cheaper and whatever. That would be an option. Just getting a straight up office, which would be like, obviously we can't afford.
Right.
And then finding some sort of living situation for me where I would be living in an apartment where we could use the living room as an office because I live by myself and that wouldn't bother me. So I think those are kind of the 3 options, because I have been thinking more and more too, and this is definitely a good situation, but of course there's always room for improvement, I think.
100%.
And I think definitely
This is the only situation.
This is
all we can do.
Well, it's basically just because,
Unless there's some genius idea that we've not thought of.
No, I thought like, oh, well, Arlene works during the day. We could go to my place and work. But then it's like, well, what about Arlo?
Well, he'd come there.
Huh?
But he
Well, I
just
don't
come
know
with
if
it.
dogs are allowed to,
Right.
So I just think you have more responsibilities in a certain field that just sort of forces it to be here now, which again it's a great situation, I think. But there are times definitely where I'm like, well, I would just keep working now because
Right.
I don't have those responsibilities.
Well, it's also just
And I just have to leave.
bound
and I'm
to our
like, fuck.
computers.
Right, totally.
It's I'm totally aware of that.
Yeah.
I'm really exploring this for the first time, honestly. Right now, I haven't.
But that's not
really considered.
I don't want that to sound like a complaint.
It's not.
It's
just a fact.
It's just a fact.
It's
Exactly.
totally a fact. But like, Phoebe's taking off. Like she gets like a month before she's due. She'll be at home. And then she's off for 100% 3 months afterwards.
Yeah.
But can be off for up to like 12 months. where obviously her and the baby are going to be here.
Right.
So it's like, if I were working by myself and you weren't in the picture, working from home would be a great scenario for me, because I could kind of try and juggle the two.
Right.
But that's just not the case when you're also here.
Yeah.
It's like, what does one do? And it's like, we don't know, right? So it's a little stressful to think about, or at least it is for me. But there's obviously an answer. It's like, obviously it's going to work out.
Yeah.
It's not like we're not going to work.
No,
it's not like we're not going to make these films. It's not like anything's going to
I think the same
stop
thing
that. But it's like, we have to figure out some solutions now that we haven't come up with before.
Right.
And that can be a little intimidating to start. But in the end, if you look at it, you just have to address it and then work through it.
Yeah.
I think that was like what I wanted to talk about in general on this podcast, would be like, what can you do to deal with those kinds of unknown situations? Like, what do we do? I think that's an interesting question. Like, when we reach something that's unknown, we don't know the exact answer to, and it feels a little overwhelming. Well, what do you do? I kind of know what I do, but it's not the same every time.
I mean, I can only speak to this situation.
Yeah.
Would be like, I don't know, everyone has to say what they want and what they don't want, or like what basically everyone would have to say what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then we're left with,
that's a good start.
okay, well, here's the things that do work, or at least here's the components that we need to make it work. And then I'm sure there's only like one or two options that you kind of have to pick from. I mean, you're pretty limited. That's how I deal with that, I guess. But unknowns in general, I don't think about stuff very much. I really, and my mom was asking like, oh, I'm going to come visit you in May. And I said, okay, we'll talk to me in like April then.
Right.
Because I really can't think that far ahead. I don't even know, because I was like, I'm going to be moving apartments. Boris and Johan will have been submitted to festivals. I don't even know. Let's say Boris and Johan gets, accepted to Rain Dance and gets into the official selection and wins the audience award. Would I even be in Copenhagen in that moment? Would I be somewhere else at the festival and then trying to figure out funding for the next film? And suddenly the whole question of Burning Boat as making commercial videos just goes out the window. So I'm like, it's just hard to think about.
It is.
There's so many scenarios that it's like, I'd rather just wait and see what happens. And then we'll make some decisions.
For sure. I mean, you can't make decisions before you know all the components. But I think what you can do is you can think about, like you said, well, what do we need?
Right.
And what does not work?
Right.
And what do we need to be taking into account, so that as soon as we kind of have an idea of what's going on, we can act on it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that really works for me is, well, what is if it's not necessarily a problem, like what's the thing in question, or what is the problem or the issue, and then actually spell that out.
Right.
And then on top of that, think of, well, what is the absolute worst case scenario? Because as soon as you've done that, it's almost like, oh, it's not that bad. Well, it probably, but it's probably not as bad as you're making it think.
Yeah.
Like, worst case scenario with the baby coming and like not having offices would be, baby's here, Phoebe's here, I'm here, and we have to work here at the same time.
Yeah.
Baby's constantly crying.
Yeah.
Phoebe's constantly stressed out about us being in there and me not being able to focus properly on both things at once.
Yeah.
And me being stressed out about not being able to focus on either one of those
that
two
sounds
things.
pretty bad.
Right? But like, that's kind of what I feel like needs to be thought about.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of start to realize where the conflicts would lie, or where the actual issues would be, and start to deal with them individually instead of it becoming this massive, because it does sound like a massive problem when I say it like that.
Yeah.
Saying it for the first time, but like, I think it would have an impact, on a negative impact on like a lot of different. If Phoebe was
stressed, and I wouldn't want to.
Well, it doesn't sound fun. It basically.
Yeah.
I guess that's a good place to start.
Yeah. And this is going to sound a little dark. Let me do a little tangent here.
Do it.
Might have to cut this out. I really find comfort. Like when you say, what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah.
Like I've thought in my head, like, oh, what if everybody hated me? I had fucked something up completely. There was no chance of me like redeeming myself, whatever. Blah, blah, blah. The lowest of my life, I could kill myself. Right? And in a weird way, and I've talked to this with my roommate, he said the exact same thing. And it's like, oh, I would still have an out. That would be like, okay. And it really makes me feel better in the long run.
I get what you're saying.
You know, the same
I
thing
get
with,
what you're
like,
saying.
Maybe suicide is a little bit too dark for people.
So let's real quick backtrack to what you were just saying, because we gotta like.
Let me nail this down.
So you're saying
maybe suicide is too dark.
I get it though, but if you break it down to the lowest thing or the worst thing that could happen, just having gone through that process, you realize that you have options the whole way down.
But no, it's not even.
And that there's
it's
something. There's always something you can do.
It doesn't matter though. Ultimately, like the idea that like, I was embarrassed. Like, yet the Earth is not going to exist at some point either.
Right.
Like once you kind of macro scale it, or kind of think about it as like,
put things into perspective.
Nobody
I think
fucking cares.
nobody
nobody fucking cares. Or like,
nobody cares but you.
When I was 15, I was caught drinking for the first time.
Yeah.
Right. And that was such a like, oh, I'm never going to live this down. This is going to be the worst. Oh, this is never going to. And then now you like laugh about it. Right. So I think a lot of things are the same where it's like, yeah, things are uncomfortable now that I'm 100% sure of. We will laugh at it in 5 years.
Right.
Like, remember that time when we didn't have money and
we're
struggling for. There'll be great memories. So 100%. In a
100%.
weird way, sort of like distancing yourself, and like, of course, it still sucks in the moment. The same thing with like a breakup or something. You can always be like, well, I know I'm going to be over this in 6 months.
Yeah.
It still sucks. But it does help to be like.
It helps.
Of course you're going to get over it.
Yeah. You're going to figure it out.
Yeah, of course.
It's not to say that you like should stop trying to make it better or to be happy in the moment.
Right.
It's just trying to put things in perspective
Right.
and realize that, things do move forward. And that's what I meant by like, what is the worst that could happen is also kind of in the same area of
Right.
trying to understand what it is you're worrying about. And that, okay, fine, it's not, okay, I can deal with that.
Right.
I can actually deal with that. It's not like
Exactly.
the end, like the end of the world. The only time it's actually the end of the world is the end of the world. And that never happens.
And even if it did,
you wouldn't know.
the world be over. Great. Who cares?
Well, I care, but I get what you mean.
You would care if the world. You wouldn't be able to care.
No, I know. That's what I said.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you meant.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a whole nother point.
Hit it up. I don't even know what time we're at.
I think we're at like 50 minutes because that took a while with the postman.
Yeah, 50. Okay. Shoot another point.
Got a couple funny things. So you have been you took my laptop home.
I did.
And you wanted something from it.
I stole your battery.
Right. That's all you wanted.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to clear space on my laptop as well, or are you just
that
trying
was
to
me
make
just
it?
being nice.
Oh.
And backing
shit.
it up for you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Wasn't the easiest thing
Great.
to do.
So you showed up.
I just felt very awkward that day because I was like, oh, I'm gonna show up and be like, I did something for you, and I kind of presented it as this like, hey, you just need to back this up on a computer. It's your stuff.
Oh, well, see, now I'm because I got really excited about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Because I started looking at it, and I was like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, you backed up my old laptop that's been like dead.
Half of it. You have to still.
Right, half of it.
I only had
but
that
like
much
the
space
good
on it.
half.
Yeah.
And so I have all these old documents, all these old films, and best of all, the actual raw footage from some of my earliest films that I made at university.
Right.
So I can see myself directing. I can see myself clapping in front of the camera with
Wearing
a
a nice
slate.
blue polo shirt.
Oh, I knew you'd bring that up.
Little prep boy directing.
It's just funny to see, and it's like in the moment when I was in those videos, me, that person in those clips, stressing out about a scene that's not going like I had written it, or having to deal with unknown elements.
Yeah.
yeah, now it doesn't matter at all, and it's funny. It's so
Yeah,
funny
exactly.
to watch. But still, it did bring up some like anxious feelings of remembering the moment and kind of being able to relate to that feeling of like, oh, it's not going like I want it to go. And like, oh, people are gonna have to watch this, or
Yeah.
it's like my responsibility. But it is funny to find old stuff like that. Like you were looking through some old stuff the other day to get Instagram photos.
Right.
A bunch of old stuff. Like you made a film at college that you never finished.
No.
Which to me is fascinating.
Why?
Because you put so much time into it.
I did.
And then you decided not to show it.
Yeah.
Even though, because you thought it wasn't good enough or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, but no one cares.
Yeah.
But you did care.
I did care.
And of course people care.
Yeah.
It's like, do you regret that? Do you wish you had done it? Do you...
No, I think my college years were very crazy.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
I think if you were like, well, if you did it again, I would change a whole host of other things outside of not finishing my film. The film was like so insignificant to me at a certain point.
Right.
Yeah.
But even just going through the experience of like releasing what you knew wasn't good, even though, I'm not saying it's not good.
Yeah.
But I'm just going off of what you must have reached a conclusion of it not being good enough or something.
Well, it's basically, you're supposed to go to the school for 4 years, and you're supposed to, or not, it's recommended that if you're taking classes, production classes, which means you're taking one of the classes where you make a film, because you can go through film school and never make a film. Right.
Yeah, I know.
So you have to choose to take those production classes. And when you take those, they recommend that you don't take a lot of other classes, so you can really focus on that. And I think a combination of me, because I graduated in 3 and a bit years, I was taking the most credits you could possibly take. I was working a full-time job. I think that paired with not going through the school the way you're supposed to. So basically, I took my intermediate class, and the next semester, I took the next production class so I could graduate early. And usually you're supposed to have at least a semester in between those where you're kind of thinking of the next thing that you're going to do and blah, blah, blah. I just kind of set myself up for never finishing anything.
Right. So you were actually missing stuff for the film.
Scenes. I was done with it.
But then you didn't have time to edit it.
No, I did have time to edit it. I just didn't have time to finish it basically. And I've very much a mindset of, what most people do too is they direct something and they get an editor and they start collaborating. And in school specifically, I was very in my own head of because I know how to edit. So it was hard for me to be like, oh, I'll pass this on to someone else to help me finish, or I'll ask for someone else's help on this. I just felt like, oh, I can just do everything myself. Because I could, but I didn't have the time to.
So what you're saying you didn't have time, but then you said you did have time to edit. You just didn't want to because then it would be yourself, or you're saying you wanted to edit it yourself. No, but you knew that you should have let someone else do it.
I didn't have the time. I could have made the time, right? You can always make the time.
Right. Well, yeah. Not always, but yeah, I get what you mean.
It's basically, I think it's a combination of I was working on a bunch of other things
that wasn't
were
a priority.
Actually paying me money, right? It wasn't a priority.
Right.
I did finish an edit that wasn't done by any means. I still needed sound and all that stuff. And then that just wasn't up to par, and it just kind of went. And then the whole thing is that it's not like I decided one day I'm not going to do this. It's just life goes on. The next class comes, and you're like, okay, well now I'm going to work on this next film, and at some point I'll finish this intermediate film that whatever. We'll finish it sometime, and then it just kind of
fizzles out.
It fizzles out,
and suddenly it's like, well, now I might as well, work on a new film because it's been so long that I know that I could do something.
Right. Not only, and then I did the
of,
advanced class, and I didn't even start filming that film.
What was that about?
It was about a girl who had shots. It was the song "Hey Angel" by Jimi Hendrix.
Maybe
that's based off of that. Again, it wasn't, and I also always had in my head that I was like, I really didn't understand how to make short films And I
Yeah.
kept telling my professors, I was like, I think I want to write longer stories and I think I want to do feature films. And it's kind of taught that it's like, okay, well, you do short films and learn how to do that. And then you move on to feature films, right? As sort of a graduation or whatever. And I honestly just think I'm not good at short films.
Yeah, you
I
said
don't
that.
know how to write a 10-page script.
It's like, because you have to write a scene, basically. Or like
Yeah,
2 scenes.
Right. And then like the intermediate film was about a guy whose girlfriend has left him because of his drug use. So he decides to learn how to lucid dream so that he can use drugs during his sleep and be clean in his conscious state so that he could be with the girl. And he realizes that in his dreams, he can just create a better version of his girlfriend. So he starts becoming addicted to sleeping pills and just wants to sleep the whole time. And then at the very end of the film, it reveals that like he's watching this giant naked version of her lumbering in the distance, and she looks at him and it's his own face looking at himself, and he's basically been fucking himself in his sleep and like, right? Which again, I would say it's a good idea.
It is.
But it's a terrible idea for a 10-minute
for
film.
a short film.
Because I was trying to set up stuff of like, oh, right,
Deep
they had a
character
relationship.
studies,
It's just
yeah.
two people
It's
talking.
Too much.
And it's like, remember that time when I was dating that girl and blah, and you're just trying to explain everything, you know? And that was kind
So
of
maybe
the
you
main
do
issues I was
know
running
now
into.
what a short film could be, but you just prefer to make longer stories. Because
Yeah,
I
I've
had
never-
the same issue with like, I'd write, I mean, they're like full film. They're full
Yeah,
ideas of like
yeah.
with backstories, and you have
Right.
to care about the characters. You have to have
Right.
an emotional. It's kind of hard to do that. In
Dude,
a short
I think
film.
short films are like incredible. And when I see a good short film, I'm like, I could not do that. Because it's so concise. It's so like having the discipline to, write 10 pages of something that is, it just feels very disciplined. It feels almost like the wrong way around to learn how to do shorts. And then I feel like being able to do shorts is really like a masterful.
I think we're taught
understanding.
it wrong. I think that might be it. 'Cause
Maybe.
you come into it feeling like, oh, you have to tell a story.
Right.
And so you're trying to tell a story.
Right.
A story has a beginning, middle, and end.
Right.
But a short film often isn't a story. It's more like a thought.
Right.
Or
With
a
a
feeling.
twist at the end.
Yeah. It's like,
I don't even watch that many short films. I don't even know. But
I mean, I've watched some. It's just, you're like, oh, this is my opportunity to like write about something I
Right.
really care about.
right.
But no, it's not. It's about it's a much smaller thing, and you have to really be super specific about it.
Yeah. Like one I remember off the top of my head that I really liked was it's this guy who's at some sort of bistro, right? Where you eat outside, and he gets his food, a plate of food, and then he goes back up to the bistro to like get some ketchup or something. And he comes back, and there's this like homeless looking guy standing right across from him. And the homeless looking guy just starts to eat some of the food.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, okay. And then he's like decides to be nice and kind of splits up the plate into two, right?
Yeah.
And then they're both eating together, nothing's said. And then the homeless guy kind of just walks away at some point.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, that's interesting. And then he turns around or he like looks for his wallet, right? He realizes
already
it's
know
not
what's
there
going
where he
on.
left it. He looks around and there's a full plate of food with his wallet next to it. And he was eating from this other guy's plate, right? And that guy must have been thinking, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? I was like, that's a brilliant,
That's very good.
short little thing. That is not a guy who's addicted to drugs, who wants to go to his sleep, whose girlfriend.
Yeah.
Well, it's like all that shit. It's like, well, of course you can't distill that into.
Of course, it's not gonna be good.
Right.
And it's so easy to say in hindsight, you know.
Yeah, but even after you do it, I think you learn so quickly because you are doing it for the first time, these shorts, and you're going quite fast in terms of like, yeah, they are getting better, but you're still making massive mistakes. That you do learn quick enough that I really did feel like I got all my footage, I put in the editing, and I immediately knew. I was like,
Oh shit.
fuck.
Yeah.
You know.
See, I didn't know that when
Yeah.
I was editing my short film, which was
Okay.
also about lucid dreaming.
Yeah, that's funny.
And I thought it was good afterwards. Like Phoebe will tell you, I was like, this is good. Like this could do well at a festival. So I submitted it to like 15 festivals. Like I had a budget, I crowdfunded money, and I spent half of that money that I crowdfunded on submitting it to festivals.
Yeah.
And it didn't get accepted anywhere.
Yeah.
Except the Canterbury Student Film Festival.
Yeah.
Where it didn't win anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, I would say the same thing as you said about yours. It's a good idea. Like I think it's still a good idea. Basically, a guy has lost his girlfriend in a car accident.
We made the same film. Okay.
No, kind of.
Could you imagine?
Has lost his girlfriend in a car accident, and he was never able to make it to the scene of the accident to say goodbye to her because she was still conscious and he was on the phone with her. But by the time he got there, she was dead.
Right.
And he kept saying, like, stop saying goodbye. I'm going to be there in a second. So he's living with this guilt of not having said goodbye to her and not letting her say goodbye to him.
Right.
And so he has nightmares because of this. So in his nightmares, he's constantly running and being chased because that's like the traumatic experience translated into, it's just a physical act of running that now stresses him out. So he's often being chased by something, or he's trying to get out of somewhere. He doesn't know why. And basically he decides to try and lucid dream so that he can create a scenario where he can realize that it's a dream and that he doesn't have to be scared of running. He can stop. He can stop physically running. And somehow
deal with the trauma.
Deal with that specific aspect of it. Not that he's gonna like live with his girlfriend in his dream and she's still alive, but purely get her, like the memory of her back into his brain, and so that he can say goodbye to her for the final time. And then he can like kind of move on without this feeling of like grief. There's a lot to it, and it's a lot of different scenes. I show like 5 different nightmares before he actually is able to do what he wants to do. And like within each nightmare, there's so many other things that I want to try and talk about and like want to try and explore, and cinematic styles that I want to try and get into, and like all this stuff. And there's like other cast members that are part of his life as well.
Yeah. Because you're trying to
you don't care about the character. You cannot care about a character in 10. Well, you can, but it's
that's
like,
why I say it's masterful, because it's really, I've watched some where it's like, fuck, dude.
Yeah, but you don't care about someone's situation. You can't feel. You can say someone has a hard life,
right?
And that's fine. I understand that, but you're not gonna feel it. Like, you're not gonna be like thinking and remembering all the hard things that the character went through because you've seen the scenes of them going through it. You haven't gone on a journey with them.
Yeah.
So you're not empathetic with them in the same way that a short film can set up a scenario that you accept, and it's believable, and you are interested in what the character is doing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you can't feel emotionally connected with the character. It can be done like very well. It's so much more difficult, but I think it's too much to expect an audience member to feel deeply sad for the character that you are writing about, to the point where they would be able to just understand emotionally what they're going through without being able to see it.
Yeah. I think you definitely, at the end of a short, it's more likely that you're going to be like, rather than, oh my fucking God. Because, obviously a feature film, you've been with that character for 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's a big payoff.
It's like short films are that are good, in my opinion, are the ones that leave you with a sense of satisfaction that your brain was kind of hijacked by the filmmakers for however long it lasted, for the 5 minutes that you were watching, where you were led down a pathway of thought, and actually it was something different, or the way you were thinking was flawed, and you learned something about your own thought process.
Yeah.
You assumed things that weren't true, or you viewed something the way they wanted you to, and then they threw it back at you in a different way.
Yeah.
It was very different.
Yeah. I'm curious. I just don't watch enough either to really know. Because I think like Whiplash was a short before it was a feature.
That's cool.
I'd be curious to see.
I think you're right.
What that was like. But yeah, I never finished any of those. And it used to bother me, but now it really doesn't. You know,
that's good.
It bothered me when I wasn't sure I was going to make because that's what I kept telling myself. I was like, fuck that. I'm going to make this feature. That's what I actually care about. Because I'd written already like second year. We started writing that.
Yeah, I know you said that's a long time. Well, let's go and work on it.
Let's do it.
I don't have anything else.
We will see you next week on Burning Boat Business.